Hey guys, Sabri Subi here, and welcome to this module of quantum growth called Taking the Market. And this training is about exactly just that, and that is taking over your market and really terrorizing the competition and becoming the number one dominant force in your niche and in your industry. And that is all based on forming your business so you have a mathematical advantage, i.e. you have a business model that is engineered off very sound unit economics when you know that you have an advantage over anyone else in your marketplace. And when you're scaling a business and when you're growing it up, it starts with you're just starting out, you're getting a few clients, and you're kind of competing with the competition, and you're selling against them, and there's always this competitive force that is kind of grinding up against your margins and grinding up against your business, where you're just kind of like head-to-head competing with people. But that's not what we're about when we're scaling up. Like, we're about just moving into a market and taking over it, and just really taking the market by brute force if necessary. And that's exactly what we're going to be covering in today's training. So let's just take a look at that before we dive into the specifics. So we'll be going over taking the market, then temperature of traffic, opportunities for wild scale, the casualties of scale, and also becoming omnipresent, or AKA God mode. So let's dive in. So taking the market is all about terrorizing the competition and becoming the number one apex predator in your market. And this all comes down to architecting a business where you can spend more than any of your competitors to acquire a customer. Because businesses that are willing and able to spend more to acquire a customer considerably have fewer competitors vying for those clients because they're simply unable to compete at that acquisition cost. And that makes traffic channels that are unprofitable for most businesses accessible and really, really highly profitable for the apex predator who sits on top of the food chain in their market, in any given market, which means less price competition and more profitability long term. Because we're here to move into a market and then to be able to take actions that our competitors cannot rationalize. They don't understand how we can be so aggressive with our marketing. And they don't understand that we are able to move in and we're just simply willing and able to pay more to acquire a customer than any of them. And that means that we get all the customers. But let me clarify something, right? It's not just about paying more for a client. It's about being willing to pay for the right customer. So we're not just going to say that we are going to go out and pay more than anybody else in the market. We're saying that we're willing to pay more, okay? That doesn't mean that we can use all of this advanced marketing stuff to actually be able to move out into a market and acquire customers more effectively than anybody else. That's not what it means. And it's also not about just paying more. It's about being willing to pay more relative to your competitors. Okay? And it's all relative to what our competitors are willing to pay. And some of them might be, well, most of them will be, very unsophisticated business operators where they don't even really think about customer acquisition costs. They don't factor into their pricing. They don't really think in this kind of business builder mindset where it's all engineered towards growth. And the other thing is that it's not just about paying more, it's about paying more while still being profitable. So engineering a business model that has that baked in cost of a really high customer acquisition in it, right? So we're not only able to go out there and really use our brute force to buy up all the customers, but then we're able to do that not going into the red necessarily. We may on some instances want to go into the red, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It means while still being able to be profitable in those circumstances. Because it's not just about paying more, it's also about building a long-term relationship with a client and building a greater lifetime value for your customers. Most people don't have a business. They have an offer or they have this product that they sell where it's like a one-time event, i.e. they sell a service or a product to a customer and that is the end of the relationship. And when you go into your market and you engineer a business model where you're willing and able to spend more to acquire a customer than any of your competitors, that means that you need to make more money off your clients. And in order to make more money off your clients, that means engineering a proper back end to your business and not just having the front end where you're acquiring that customer on the front end and that's it. Because that's the least profitable sale that you will ever make in your business. And this forces you to have a long-term perspective on serving your clients. And it's not just about paying more to acquire a client, it's also about investing heavily in the conversion of that lead into a customer for the first time. And then continuing to further invest heavily in nurturing that relationship with that client to ascend them through a long lifetime sales funnel. And that's really what we're about. We're really about adding as much value to a client over their entire lifetime, more than anyone else in our marketplace, so we can obviously get more value out of that relationship as well from a business perspective, i.e. we have a greater lifetime value of a client, i.e. we can spend more money to acquire that customer. And then we just bully everyone. We push them out of the marketplace and they basically give up and they become Uber drivers because they cannot justify our actions. They cannot rationalize them. They think we have lost our mind and we are a lunatic because they can only see what's going on the surface level. They cannot see what happens post conversion of that lead into a customer. And this is really how savvy business builders dominate their niche and then build a moat around them to distance themselves from the competition. Because it's like you've engineered a moat because no one else can do what you're doing because they don't understand this stuff. Okay? So let's just take a look at the math to building a 7-figure business, because there is a lot of different pathways that you can go down on your road to building a 7-figure business. And what I find is typically when I speak to a business owner that's never done 7 figures before, and you're like, okay, what are the goals with your business? Where are you trying to get to? What are you trying to achieve? And everybody has the magic number of $1 million. They're like, I would love to do $1 million. And you know that they haven't really used like a lifestyle calculator to find that out because it's just, I just want to hit $1 million, just a round figure. But they never really stop to figure out exactly how many clients are they going to need to get and how many they're going to need to get every month in order to build a 7-figure business. So let's just have a look at the different options here. So first of all, you might say, I want to go out there and get 8 whale clients who pay me $10,000 per month each. And if you do the math on that, I'm talking give or take like a point of a client or 0.3 of a client here. But essentially all you need is 8 clients paying you $10,000 per month in order to hit the 7-figure mark. Now, you might also go down the road of getting 16 high-ticket clients paying you $5,000 per month each. Now, at this stage, you might be thinking like, wow, like $10,000, Sabri, that's a lot of money. Or $5,000, that's a lot of money. Yes, to some people, that is a lot of money. However, depending on how big of a problem that you solve, that might be a pittance to, the value that you create for that client. But again, right now, we're just looking at the numbers, the sheer mathematical equation of what it takes in order to build a 7-figure business. 41 medium-sized clients paying you $2,000 per month each. This is what it looks like. Do you know what I mean? Going out there and getting 41 medium-sized clients that all pay you $2,000 per month. Or 83 small businesses paying you $1,000 per month. 166 micro clients paying you $500 per month. And that's kind of like the least I've reduced it down to, because I don't recommend charging anything less than $500 per month. You know what I mean? That I would rather engineer a business model that just delivers more value so I can charge more. And i.e. I solve a bigger problem that helps that person get more of an output and more of an outcome. Therefore, I can charge them more for that. Because the thing that's baked into all of these things is like retention rate and churn, which is a real statistic for service-based business in terms of being able to retain clients and how many new clients that they need in order to maintain those things. And what I have found in my business is, I started all the way from the very beginning here at 500 clients per month, $500 per month, I should say. And, and then I also have, 10,000 plus clients per month. And what I found is that the micro and small to medium sized clients, they're the biggest problems. They're the ones that want to email you every day. They want to know, if you breathe, what's going on in terms of their monthly retainer. And even though they only pay you $500 per month, in their mind, you need to generate them $100,000 per month. As ridiculous as it sounds, people that pay the least amount of money, I have found they give you the most amount of problems. And typically the ones that are paying 5K and 10K per month, there is a reason that they can afford to pay that kind of money, and it's because they're more successful, and more successful people are typically, they're not going to heckle you as much. Do you know what I mean? As long as they're getting value out of the relationship and as long as you're doing your thing, typically these people aren't going to micromanage you. And it kind of goes against intuition of what you would think, right? Of if someone's paying me $10,000 per month, they're really going to be policing every single thing that I do. They're going to want a full breakdown of exactly how many minutes I spend on the account, who was on the account, is there video footage of that person working on the account, all types of just outrageous shit, right? That people say. You would think out of anybody, it would be the clients that are paying you the most amount of money that would put you under that level of scrutiny, but it's actually quite the opposite. The $10,000, $5,000 client per month, they want to see value. You need to deliver on exactly what you say. But if you do that, they just leave you alone. Where even if you deliver the earth and the moon for the $500 per month clients, they're typically just nitpicking over every single little thing, or there's 31 days this month, or there's 28 days. Can you pro rata invoice me? And all types of crazy stuff, right? So typically you want to operate in that medium realm. Do you know what I mean? I suggest that you really don't charge anybody less than $1,000 a month, right? But I've included all of the different ends on here so you can get an idea of that. And once you do have a clear picture on where it is that you sit and where you want to be operating in, now you have a target of the number of new clients that you need in order to get there. And that means that you're ahead of 99% of other business owners that don't have a target. They don't know how many clients they need in order to hit their revenue goals, which is just complete lunacy to me. However, that's how everyone operates, right? So now you can start to calculate how many leads you're going to need to generate per month and at what close rate that you'll need to have in order to close those leads and hit that revenue target and bring those clients on board. You'll be able to break it down to a monthly target and say, cool, this is how many clients that I need to get per month if I want to hit that. And you will know. And then you can just simply apply a mathematical equation to scale your business. Now, this leads us to the next thing, which is basically going to be, that's going to dictate how many clients that you need per month is going to dictate on where you operate in your market and where your clients are and how many that you're going to need and at what stage of the awareness are you going to be attacking them. Because basically, as I've explained earlier on in the program, in any given market, 3% of prospects are looking to buy now. Then we have the further 17% that are in information gathering mode, 20% that are problem aware, and then 60% that are not problem aware. So why am I showing you this now? Well, if you're saying that you need to go out into your marketplace and get 166 clients at $500 a pop, then you need to start thinking about, well, is there even 3% of my market that is like the 3% of my market that's out there? What are the chances of me converting and hitting that client number of the 166 clients in a year? And it all depends on what the size of your market is. But let's just say that that is your target and you have to get 166 clients in the year to pay you $500 per month. And let's just say the market that you operate in, for calculation's sake, there's 1,000 people searching for exactly what it is that you do on Google per month. So what we will say is, okay, from those 1,000 visits or 1,000 searches, we're going to get a 2% click-through rate on our ads. We're going to be running Google ads. We're getting a 2% click-through rate. That means that from those 1,000 people, we're going to get 200 people coming through to our website. Okay. Now, from those 200 people, let's just say that you have got a 5% conversion rate in terms of click to lead, right? The people that are coming through to the website and then converting. So then from those 200 visitors that you've got coming in through to your website, basically you're only going to get 10 leads, right? So if you're getting 10 leads per month, and let's just say that you have a 30% close rate on an inbound lead, that means you're getting 3 clients per month. And if we look at the 166 clients that you need to get over the course of the year, that's just over 13 per month. So you're 10 clients short per month. Therefore, that is not a mathematical equation that's going to stack up to you being able to hit your goal, right? Then you might need to go out into the information gathering mode kind of prospects, which is the other 17% of the market. And then maybe there's a bit more search traffic, but then the conversion rate from lead to close is going to be lower. Or you're going to have to go out to the problem aware or the not problem aware. And then this is what you need to start thinking about, right? You need to actually think about, well, in order for me to get 166 clients, I am definitely going to need to be targeting the 60% of people that are not even problem aware. And if I'm going to do that, then this is kind of like what the numbers are going to look like for me. Or I'm going to need to engineer a business model that has a longer sales cycle. Or there's all these other different factors to kind of think about when you're thinking about your numbers, or the market sophistication and competition continuum. Because, if you're just focusing on, those people that are looking to buy right now and you're trying to charge a 10K per month, depending on what it is, that might be very, very difficult because the waters are bloody with competition in that market, because everybody's running Google ads because it's so simple to get set up and get running, right? And everyone's just marketing to those 3% of people that are looking to buy now. And therefore, maybe you can't get a 10 grand, per month retainer off them. Maybe it's 3 grand or 2 grand because it's just so competitive, right? Or maybe you need to, go into the blue uncontested waters and get way more leads in your funnel to be able to sell people and go through that qualification process and then get your 8 clients at 10K per month, right? And these are the things that I just want you to start thinking about when you're thinking about taking the market in your different industry and your niche that you operate in. Because it's very difficult, if not almost impossible, to take the market just operating in the buying now. Because it's just such a small percentage of the market. The way that you really do it is you operate in the uncontested waters, the coldest traffic, and you basically unlock the wildest scale because you're not limited by how many people are searching for what it is that you've got. So let's look at it another way, right? This is essentially what a hypothetical total market looks like. And this is the total number of people in that market. And this is what I call cold Tinder traffic. And these are really consists of prospects who have absolutely no idea who you are. They don't know that they have a problem or anything like that. And this always is the biggest segment of a market. Then what we have is something that's called warm or second date traffic. And that's it. They've met you, they know who you are, but they're certainly not sold on you yet. And then you have the last segment of the market, which is the hot traffic. And this is the Netflix and chill traffic. And this is the audience equivalent of a long-term relationship. And these are the easiest people to convert, but it's again a much, much smaller segment of the market than the cold audience, right? So let's just say that your market is the financial planning market. You're a financial planner. And basically your prospect is going to jump onto Google and they're going to search for financial planner. Now, let's just take a look at what we can see here. So this is Google Ads, and it's showing us how much people are searching for that every month for the word financial planning. So we see there's 6,600 people that are searching for that term every single month. And to be top of page bid for that, on the low range, it's $4.33 per click. And on the high range, it's $16.21 per click. And then we've got another keyword, financial advisor. There's 9,900 searches for this one. And this one is on the low side for top of page, it's $4.02. And on the high side, it's $12.60. Now, this someone that's typing in financial planner or financial advisor, these are people that are definitely typically not in the buying now phase. They are more so in the information gathering phase. And why do I say that? Well, it's a very generic term, right? Someone's just typing in financial advisor or even financial planning, right? Like, what is it they're exactly looking for? So that market is going to be a lot more searches for it because they're not in that dead hot bullseye center. Then we have a look at Financial Planner Melbourne. Now we're starting to get a lot more purchase intent, right? This is definitely extremely hot traffic because they're looking for a financial planner in Melbourne. And whenever you add a geography or in a city or a state at the end of what you're searching for, that means that you have a lot higher propensity to buy because you're actually looking for it in that area, i.e. you're looking for someone that can help you with this problem. And again, look at the number of searches for that term. Instead of just financial planning, which was 6,600, this is only getting 720. So do you begin to see how the market starts to contract? The hotter the traffic, the smaller the opportunity is. And let's have a look. Top of page bid is $5 per click. On the low side, or $16.98 per click on the high side. Another term, financial advisor Melbourne, not just financial advisor, but Melbourne in the end, the market is contracting 880 searches for this one. And at low side, $4.67 a click. High side, it's $12.92 per click. Now, the reason that I'm showing you this is when we start to have a look at the mathematical equation in terms of acquiring customers with paid advertising, we begin to start running some numbers and things become very clear to us. So let's just say that in our financial planning practice that the average client's lifetime value is $18,000, okay? So that's what a client is worth to us over their lifetime with us. Now, we saw that for that first keyword that there was 12,000 searches per month, right? Then we're going to say we're going to get a 2% click-through rate, meaning that we can get 240 clicks out of that 12,000 people that are searching for it. From our 240 clicks times $12 as the average cost per click, that means it costs us $2,880. So from those 240 clicks, we're going to get a 3% conversion rate, i.e. 3% of those people that click on our ad are going to convert into a lead. That is thus going to generate us 7.2 leads at a $400 cost per lead. So we're going to get our 7.2 leads and we're going to times that now by a 20% close rate. So we're closing 20% of those inbound leads, and that's going to generate us 1.44 clients from that activity, and that will be in a month, for instance. Meaning that it has cost us $2,000 for a cost per acquisition, i.e. $2,000 to acquire a customer that is worth $18,000 over the lifetime with us. That is an amazing outcome. I.e. that is generating us 1.4 new clients per month with a CPA of $2,000. Then you refer back to the mathematics of building a 7-figure business and you start to plug in these numbers and go, oh, that only gets me 1.4 new clients per month. So, I'm going to have to broaden out my search. I'm going to have a look and see if there is a total number of searches in my market that is going to support me being able to actually hit my new client numbers per month. Again, we're not leaving it to by chance. We're using mathematics and then we know how much search traffic there needs to be in our market to get the amount of leads that we need in order to hit that new client number per month to hit our 7-figure target. So now let's look at a different situation, one that we're not restricted by the number of searches that there are in a market. Now, what we're going to say is instead of Google now, what we're actually going to do is we're going to be running Facebook ads. So let's take a look at how this equation stacks up. So first of all, we're a financial planner in Melbourne. So we've got Melbourne in here and it's saying that our audience here has 250,000 to 300,000 people in there. However, that's just all people aged between 28 to 59. But let's start now to drill down a little bit. So we want to be basically going for people that have some in characteristics around finance, right? So what we'll do is we'll type in literally finance and we'll see what we can find. So personal finance, yep, we'll put that in there and we'll add that layer on there. Then let's do banking, have a look at what we've got for banking. Awesome, online banking. And then we had another one on there as well, which was investment banking. Yep, we'll add that on there. And then what you can do is when you go into banking, yeah, we'll just add that on there. Do you want to change your industry from banking, which is more general, online banking, investment banking? Yeah, let's broaden it up, right? So we'll broaden that up a little bit. And then also, let's just say that we'll target somebody who likes The Barefoot Investor, right? Which is a book, the big author. And now what you can see is, as you can start to go in here, we can even go into advanced and go, well, look, we don't want to target people that are single and are 28 years old. Let's target people that are in a relationship, people that are engaged, 1 year plus, and married. Now we're going to target all of the married segments, but you can break it down even further. And let's have a look. So now it's saying that our audience size for this is only 1,500 to 2,000 people. So do you see that as you start to narrow your search down, it's narrowing the total number of potential people in your marketplace, right? And that's obviously going to limit to how many new customers that you can get per month, which is going to impact a lot of things. So then what you want to do is you basically want to start opening up this segment so it's not so targeted, so we can start to get a much bigger lot of scale here. So just from removing the not specified for people that aren't specified, we've gone up to 100 to 150k range. And then you're going to look at the things that, are these things necessary? Do you care if somebody's single or a relationship? Do you know that for certain? If you don't, then you better just include singles as well until you figure out where it is that your market sits at and is it realistic. And then you might go, okay, well, I said 28 to 59 year olds, but maybe, I can also include up to 65-year-old plus, and let's see what that does to my market. Okay, that's bumped me up from 150 to 200k. So you can start to play around, and then you can get even much granular and more detailed and see like what are the pages that they like and the locations specifically that they are in, and start to get even more of an understanding. But for now, this is going to give us a really good understanding of kind of the total number of people that could potentially be in our market. They've got an interest in banking and personal finance. They've read The Barefoot Investor. This is kind of where they're sitting at. And so that gives us 150k to 200,000 people. Okay, so now let's start using the median in between these, and we'll say the audience 180,000 to start running the math on this. So let's now plug in our audience size of 180,000 people per month, and we're going to times that now not by 2% click-through rate, because it's a lot lower on Facebook. We're going to say that we're not even getting a 1, we're only getting a 0.8% CTR. That is going to equate in us getting 14,400 clicks on our ad. So we get the 14,400 clicks, and we're going to pay on average roughly $2 as an average cost per click, meaning that's cost us $28,880, right, in the month for that traffic. So we get the 14,400 people, times it by the 2% CTR, 2% conversion rate, and that's the clicks, right? Now, we're not going to get, a 5% or a 6% or anything like that. We're only going to get a 2% conversion rate on those visitors into an actual lead, because again, the intent of that traffic is nowhere near as high, meaning that we get 288 leads at $100 cost per lead. So we take the 288 leads and we times that by a 3% lead to close ratio. Again, much, much lower than what we're anticipating through Google Ads. Again, because these people didn't wake up in the morning going, yeah, I'm going to hire a financial planner. Or, not like someone jumping on Google and actively searching for it. However, still, given the sheer numbers of this equation, we're going to get 8.64 clients. And our CPA is going to be higher. It's going to be $3,342 as a CPA. So that's going to generate us 8.6 new clients per month, with the average cost per acquisition being $3,342. Now, most people, when they look at that equation, they're going to be thinking, well, let me just compare these. Let me look at it side by side. Let's look at how much it costs me to acquire a customer on Google and how much it costs for me to acquire a customer through Facebook. So let's look at that. Scenario one. We've got 240 clicks. We've spent $12 as the average cost per click on Google. That cost us $2,888 or $80. So we've got $2,880 divided by the 1.4 new clients that we got. That gives us a cost per acquisition on Google of $2,000. Okay. Now we know that the average client is worth $18,000 to us, and we're going to be minusing our traffic costs of the $2,880. That leaves us with $16,000 in net at the end of the day, right? After we've paid for the cost to get the traffic, we've got $16,000 in our bank account, right? Still very, very good equation. That is generating us a ROI of 525%. I will take that all day long and twice on Sundays. Now we've got scenario two, 14,400 clicks. Now, for this, we basically are paying $2 as an average cost per click because it's Facebook and it's cheaper. That means that we have spent $28,880 on our traffic, right? So we've got the 28K divided, I should say, by the 8.64 new clients that it generated us in the month, meaning the cost per acquisition on this is $3,342. Right? So in this instance, we have generated $155,520 minus our $28,880 in traffic costs, and we have a net of $126,640 and an ROI of 438%. Okay? So which equation to you is better? A lot of people, when they look at it on the surface level, say, oh, my cost per acquisition on Google's way better. Like I pay $2K, where, on Facebook, it's like $3.5K almost. So I just put all my money into Google, right? But what they don't consider is basically the return on capital. And it's not just about ROI. It's not having about really high return on investment numbers. Because we're look at how much extra capital that we generated in that 30-day period, right? We basically have gotten an extra $110,640, right? And that's if we take, the 126 that we got from this, and we look at minusing our traffic costs. When you do that same equation, you only got $16,000 from the Google equation. From our equation, we got $126,000. So you can see that you're going to get much larger returns on your capital. And that's what it's all about. What is the return on capital? Because it's all about return on capital. It's not about return on investment, nor is it just about what the customer acquisition cost is. It's about where can you leverage your money and generate even more money that supports you hitting the mathematics on your goal. We saw on Facebook that we're going to get 8.6 new clients per month, where that scale, just from the numbers, it's not going to be possible from Google. Therefore, you really need to be thinking about not only where you're getting the lowest customer acquisition cost, because that's people that spend $1,000 on Google ads a month and generate $20,000. While that might sound really exciting to you right now, once you do that for a number of months, it gets old and you want more growth, and you don't want to be limited by the amount of people that are searching for something every month. And because, you're making, let's say in that equation, $19,000 in profit, wouldn't you rather be in a situation where you're making $126,000 in profit, but you're having to leverage more money, right? It's just, there's more gains on there. And that's why it all comes down to return on capital, not just return on investment. Now, once you're clear, as I said, on where you sit, you can plug that in again to this equation and go, okay, cool. Well, I know, in order for me to get the 8 new WOW clients, I think I'm going to be able to do that through Facebook, because I think that I can get 8.6 clients per month, and this is 8 clients over the course of the year. But again, that's at a lower, what an average of the lower a customer is worth to you on that equation that we just ran through. But you get the picture, right? You start to be able to run a mathematical equation. And you might be thinking, but Sabri, like it's becoming less attractive as I scale up, right? Like on the Facebook example, I have to spend way more money. Yes, you do. But if you look at the return on capital, it's there. And what you must understand is that there are casualties of scale, right? When you're scaling a business and you're getting 1 client per 1.4 clients, new clients per month at, $2,000 cost per acquisition, or you're getting 8.6 clients with a $3,500 cost per acquisition, that is there in black and white, is there are casualties to scaling up. And as you scale up paid traffic, and as you scale up any form of advertising, it becomes a little bit less profitable, right, as you scale. And that's the casualty of scale. And most people throttle the growth of their business because they try and not allow that casualty to take place. They think that they can keep the same cost to acquire a customer at 1 as they do on 8. Like that's not how it works. There are casualties to scaling it up. And as you ratchet it up to that next level, that's why you want to have your eye on the return on capital and not the return on investment. Because in those two past scenarios, if you only had your attention on return on investment, you would not pursue Facebook, because it's a lower return on investment, but the return on capital is far, far greater. So that's really where you want to focus on. And that brings us to the next point of the law of diminishing marginal returns. Now, the law of diminishing marginal returns state that as one input variable is increased, i.e. traffic or leads or customers in this instance, there is a point at which the marginal increase in output begins to decrease, holding all other inputs constant, right? And at that point is where the law sets in and the effectiveness of each additional unit of input decreases. Okay, so in the past example, as you're putting more inputs, i.e. more dollars of advertising in, right? It basically, that law is setting in, and the effectiveness of each dollar of ad spend that you put in, it is decreasing in terms of the ROI. But it's the ROC that we're looking at, the return on capital. So let me just illustrate how the law of marginal diminishing returns works. So on one axis, we have total outputs. That is the overall total volume / outputs created or quality of that output. And then on the other axis, we have total inputs, which is time, money, effort, and resources invested. Now, in the beginning, basically what you have is the most productive stage. And at this stage, more inputs lead to more productive and lucrative returns, i.e. you're putting money into your advertising machines, and the more that you put in, it's the same level of output that you're basically getting. Then what happens is that the point of diminishing returns sets in. And the point of diminishing returns, it's really at this stage that added inputs lead to a decreasing rate of outputs. And you want to stretch this phase to its absolute limits and to reach that equilibrium of growth and profitability. So you don't just want to stay in the most productive state and be getting, really high ROIs, but, low or lower return on capital. You really want to be operating at that point of diminishing returns, but stretching it to its absolute limits. And that limit can be categorized as the point of maximum yield. And that's where you literally push that thing to the absolute extreme just before it starts to dip to where you start to get negative returns. And at this stage, not only do you not get a return from your effort, you actually decrease your overall output, i.e. you're just putting too much money into the machine and you're creating it just to freak out, and you're getting negative returns on that, right? And that's not where you want to operate, but you do want to push it to the absolute extreme and reach that point of maximum yield. And most people, they don't think about it this way. They think about it on a basic level of, most productive from an ROI, but they're not thinking about it from a return on capital standpoint. But this is definitely something that you need to be hyper conscious of in your business as you start to scale. And it's not just ad spend, it's also number of employees and teams within your organization. Because here's another example, right? So we're going to just use a very cut and dry example of like a sandwich bar, like a Subway shop, for instance. And you've got workers, right? And you add a worker, and then from that worker that you add, the output is 5 sandwiches. So your marginal additional product that you get from adding an additional worker is 5 extra sandwiches, okay? Now you add another worker and you have 2 workers there, and together they're making 15 sandwiches. And so you've got a marginal output from adding those extra 2 workers of 10 extra sandwiches, because you had the 5, now you got to 15. So it's 10. That's the marginal product difference. Now you've got 3 workers on there, and these 3 workers, they collectively can make 20 sandwiches. And the marginal product is only 5. So they're making 20 sandwiches, which is still 5 more, but it started to dip in terms of the total marginal product output that you're getting for each additional worker. And that's because, there's more people in the kitchen. There's only so many chopping boards, so there's only so much space in that kitchen. So it's not like you just keep adding workers and they're just as effective. That's not the way that it works. Now you add another worker and you've got 4 workers in there, and collectively they can make 22 sandwiches. So if you were selling sandwiches, you've still got more sandwiches to sell, right? Therefore you're doing more revenue, but you've got the wages of these 4 sandwich makers. And the marginal product at that stage is only an additional 2. Right? So you're only adding an additional 2 sandwiches that you can make from adding a whole extra person. Then you've got 5 workers in the kitchen, and they collectively are still only making 22 sandwiches, because there's only so much room, only so many knives, only so much chopping boards, and so much space for them to move around the deli. So therefore you get 0 marginal product. So it doesn't make sense to put on a 5th worker. You wouldn't go that far. You would leave it at the 4 workers there. And then if you add 6, for instance, then from those 6 workers, you would literally only get 18 sandwiches. So the output goes down because everyone's tripping over each other. There's nothing that they can do. And so you actually lose 4 sandwiches. You're negative in the whole 4 sandwiches because you've added an additional person. So it just doesn't make any financial sense to put on a 6th person or even a 5th person, because you're not getting any marginal product, right? You're not getting any additional product output from the same inputs. Now let's look at it from a traffic standpoint, okay? So we're going to say that we've got a keyword which represents this dead hot center of the market, which is small, it's limited, and that search term is latex queen mattress. And there's 90 searches per month for that term, and it costs $5.54 on average to get a click through the website. Then it's an e-commerce website, and we've got a conversion rate of 1.5% on that keyword, and that means it's costing us $369 in order to acquire a buyer for our latex queen mattress. And our mattress could be, say, for instance, $2,000, meaning, yep, look, that stacks up. However, there's only 90 searches per month. So you're never ever going to really be able to grow past that. That's it. Like bang. You're going to basically get 1 sale as a result of that money, because there's only 90 searches. Now let's look at a different keyword, and we'll say that it represents a much bigger segment of the market, and that's latex mattress, just latex mattress. And there's 2,900 searches per month for that term. And the average cost per click is $7.79 as an average cost per click. Now we're going to convert at a lower rate because it's a less specific search term, and we're going to have a 1.2% conversion rate, meaning that it's costing us $649 to acquire a customer. Again, would you do that? Would you rather be in a segment of the market where there's 2,900 people searching for something or 90 people searching for it? Like, where is the return on capital? Again, this is a hypothetical situation. I'm just using it to illustrate how you need to think about segments that you operate in, and that not all buyers are created equal. Because if you can get way more, but it's costing you more to acquire them, but there's more money left over at the end of the month, then they're worth to spend that because it's unlocking more growth. Or we'll just say that we go super broad, and that's the word mattress. And there's 22,200 searches per month for that. And it costs on average $6.80 as the average cost per click. And the conversion rate is much lower on this because, again, it's just someone searching for a mattress. We've only got a 0.8% conversion rate, meaning the cost to acquire a customer is $999. Again, if you're able to sustain that, right? If you're making a mattress that you can afford to spend $999 in order to acquire a customer, there is so much more scale at that end of the market. And that's really what you want to be thinking about. When you're thinking about how many clients do you need, what traffic channels do you need to be advertising on, and what is the actual upper limit of what you're willing to spend to get a customer, you need to be thinking, are these numbers going to make sense when you're trying to ratchet up and trying to scale? Because it's very easy to run a business on small scale. Scale brings chaos, and as you start scaling up, there are casualties, and you lose soldiers in the war. But you just need to make sure that at the end of it, that you're still winning the war, and that's by having a really good understanding of exactly what it is going to take to win and to take that market. And a good quote on this is, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Okay? And the reason that I'm using this quote by Sun Tzu is that it is highly applicable to what we're talking about. If before you even go into battle, if you've engineered a business model where you are willing and you are able to spend more than any of your competitors to acquire a customer, then you have already won. And then you are merely just going to war and you already know what the outcome is. Where if you go to war and then try to figure out and go, oh, well, I can't spend that much to acquire a customer, then you've gone to war and you're seeking to win, but you have not first gone to war, and therefore you lose the war, right? So you always want to be thinking about, how can I engineer a business model where I am willing and able to spend more? And I know I'm a broken record, but this really is the key to winning and to taking a market. Because think about it this way. You've got two players, right? It's you versus your competitor. And one of those players they both start off from the same place, and they start bidding on keywords, on AdWords. And, oh, okay, cool. This keyword, this cost per click is costing me $1.12. And then player two, he's willing to bid more. So it's $2.05 as the cost per click. Then player two's like, oh, $1.36. Yeah, I can withstand that. I can go up to that. And they try that out for a while, and then they realize very quickly, oh, this is not profitable for me. I need to go down. I need to look for cheaper traffic. And then they go down and they go for the 83 cents cost per click. And they're always looking for ways to just whittle down that cost per click. And then you've got player one, and he's like, yeah, okay, look, let me just try it lower. Oh, $1.80. Yeah, okay, $1.80 cost per click. No, I'm not getting the volume that I need, so let me increase this. And then increases the cost per click. And then it goes up to $2.15. And then, they also just go straight up from that $2.05 up to $4.15, right? They're looking for volume. They're not just looking for the cheapest traffic. And they're going up, they're going down, they're trying to find it. And then they keep trying to push the envelope of what's possible and broadening out that net of keywords and broadening out how much traffic that they can get per month to how many clients that they can get per month. And then they reach the limit of, $6.50. That's like they're willing to spend the highest cost per click in that market, right? And they're going out and then they're operating in a segment of the market where there's 22,000 searches per month. And then you've got player two who's only concerned on price and the cheapest traffic and wants to get the cheapest leads and the cheapest cost to acquire a customer. And they're just down there scratching it out with the turkeys on the ground, getting one customer per month, where you've got this apex eagle flying around in the sky and they're acquiring 10, 20, 30 clients per month at a higher cost per acquisition, and they are going into the marketplace and they are buying all the customers and they are going to suck all the water out of the well, and then that player two is just going to suffocate and they're going to die. They're going to run out of water and they're going to just die of dehydration. And that's basically what happens when a business builder moves into a market and he's got their eye ruthlessly focused on return on capital and not return on eye, and they've got a growth mindset and they're not over optimizing for profitability. That's how you come in and you can try all the different traffic channels and you keep ratcheting it up till you hit that ceiling and you push it to the absolute limits and you kind of reach that point of maximum output, and that is how you win. Which brings us to becoming omnipresent, aka God mode. And this is where you are everywhere in your market. All of your competitors are talking about you. They're trying to poach your employees. They're, at industry conferences, all they do is talk about you. They funnel hack the hell out of you. They're on your website. They're really trying to figure out what you are doing because you are everywhere. You're buying up the most expensive traffic. You are sucking the water out of all of the riverways and all the water holes, and you're not leaving any customers left for anybody else. And you are really omnipresent, not only for your competitors, but everywhere in your marketplace for your dream buyer. And everywhere that they look, in every corner of the internet, when it's related to what it is that you do, you are there. And you are literally suffocating that market, and nobody knows how you're able to do that. And everybody wants to be you, but they can't figure out how to be you because the numbers don't make any sense for their business model because they've only got their eyes focused on the wrong metrics and not the real thing. So basically it starts off and you've got your dream buyer and they sit in the dead center of your market. And then, your ads are coming up everywhere. You're all over Google, right? When anyone types in any relevant search terms to what it is that you do, you're everywhere. And then they go onto their Facebook and their Instagram and your ads are popping up everywhere. There's always fresh new ads coming in. You're hitting them from every single angle. And, then from there, then basically your ads follow them all around the internet once they've clicked on your landing pages. And it feels like when they're on their favorite news sites or, when they're just browsing online or they're making dinner reservations, that you are just everywhere. You're covering up every corner of the internet, and then you're popping up all over YouTube, and then there's press articles about you popping up because you've been able to get such ridiculous growth that the press gets a hold of that and then they start writing stories about you. And this is how you cover up your marketplace, and this is how you win. And this is really what today's module is all about, is just about taking the market and grabbing it by the horns and wrestling it to the ground. And it's all about, what some people see as the unsexy thing, which is looking at the numbers, looking at the return on capital, right? They don't think any of that stuff is sexy, or they just think they want to create some more Facebook ads or build out a new funnel. However, it's typically these really unsexy things that allow you to have the sexiest business that has all the customers and has the best team members and is taking the most market share and is growing at the most aggressive rate. And it's because we've grounded ourselves in the unit economics and we have prepared ourselves to win before we have gone to war. So that wraps us up for today's training. Let's take a look at the action items. So first, you want to create a plan and create a budget. Look at how many new clients that you're going to need to get in order to hit your 7-figure mark, and what is that going to cost you in order to get that? Like, how much are you going to have to deploy to spend each month to acquire a customer and then to hit that number of clients in order to hit your 7-figure scale, which is planning for 7-figure scale. if you don't plan for it, you're never going to hit it, right? You need to know very clearly, okay, I am trying to get 8 new clients. I am trying to get 166 new clients, or everything in between. But you must get clear on what that looks like. You must get clear on how much you're going to be charging, how many new clients that you're going to need per month in order to hit your yearly revenue target of really unlocking that 7-figure scale. You might already be at 7 figures. It's the same thing when you're looking to hit 8 figures, right? I've been through all of the different ascension points, from 10K per month to, 10K per day to 100K per day, and all the numbers in between, right? And the way that you do that is by looking at your business as a mathematical equation and just plugging in these numbers to figure out what it is going to take you in order to hit that scale that you're after. Then being aware of the law of diminishing returns, understanding that the returns on all the variables, from the number of employees to ad spend to the number of leads that you generate, there is going to be a point in which you reach diminishing returns, and it's about stretching that to the absolute limits. Because remember, it's about return on capital, not ROI. You've got all these broke marketers that are out there talking about 7,000% ROI on their campaigns. These guys are broke bums. You don't want to listen to them, because if you ask them, what is the return on capital that you got, right? And what kind of revenue do you do? And none of these guys want to talk about any of that stuff. They want to show you the ad account that they spent $50 on and they generated, $1,000. That's all they care about, right? But we only care about return on capital, not return on investment. And lastly, just commit to taking your market. Just take your market, take it over, take all the customers, then you can hire the best team, you can be in the dominant position. And it's really this mindset that is required in order to scale from where you are right now to ultimately where you want to go. You can't have the mindset of, there's enough to go around for everybody, and I just want to friendly compete, and I really love everyone in my market, and all. No. You must take over, and you must commit to taking your market. And if you do, that is where you will enjoy the highest return on capital and the highest overall net profit at the end of the day, not by percentage, but the amount of money that is left in your bank account at the end of the financial year or at the end of the calendar year, or however you're measuring your financials. So there's a lot for you to think about and for you to really put into action in today's training. So go ahead and do that right now, and I will see you in the next video.